How can you do all that needs done in life and still pursue your desire to learn French or the guitar or grow a plant or make art? You can't put a fiddle under your pillow and wake up playing it, though how cool would that be? But one thing we can do, no matter how chaotic and overwhelming life can be, is know that every tiny small motion in the direction of those endeavors really do matter. And not only that, they add up over time with great momentum. Join me, Fain, as I interview painters and gardeners, designers and musicians, photographers and cooks, creative livers of any kind, who have somehow, in the middle of it all, continued on their creative paths, no matter what. This is Fain House Radio, and I'm so glad you're here.
I'm Nanette Davidson, and I live here in Brasstown, North Carolina. I have always had, I've had childhood fantasies of being a cook and a craftsperson, and I've been able to live that dream. Discovered the John C. Campbell Folk School when I was just out of high school, which is an incredible institution, and we can talk about that more if you want to. I went to professional weaving school and learned how to be a production craftsperson. I did a lot of work in restaurant kitchens while I was in school, and later I was able to pursue my food passion and become a cooking culinary teacher, and I ran the folk school cooking program for about 20 years. So
well, I was going to say you have some love for music and dance in there, and you've called dances, and you've done puppet making, and all kinds of different things. Sewing. We could go on and on.
Yeah. The whole music and dance thing and giant puppetry thing is about bringing people together for having fun together through movement and music. I think music is a superpower. And I am not a musician, but when you are a dancer, you can kind of move your body like an instrument. And I'm definitely not a classical dancer. I'm definitely a folk dancer, but there's nothing better in times when there's no pandemic than holding hands with a bunch of folks and going into the center and back. It's a good thing. It's a good feeling.
Yeah. So going a little bit to the beginning, was it about 17 years old that you left home? And was that in honor of you pursuing your creative journey, basically?
Well, it's funny. I kind of rushed through high school as fast as I could because I didn't enjoy it. I did not feel like I fit there. And I was able to combine my 11th and 12th grade. So I did get out when I was 17. I graduated when I was 17. And my father, who was actually a dean at Georgia State in Atlanta, downtown Atlanta, told me that there was no reason why I shouldn't go to college at Georgia State because, he could get me in free, blah, blah, blah. And that was super urban. And I was a country girl at heart. I had spent summers in the mountains. A friend of mine told me about the folk school, and, it was a residential craft school, and it sounded way better than college to me. So I did walk in the front door of the Keith House when I was 17 and kind of just immediately established that I needed to be there. That's where I needed to be. So I learned how to weave there as a teenager. And then I immediately when I did go to college, I went into an art program at Western. And then when I found out about this professional crafts program, I transferred there because I knew I wanted to sell my work in some way.
It seems you've had a really strong inner drive from the beginning towards making, cooking, getting people together, all those things, and I'm curious, where do you think that comes from? Because it's never stopped. You keep, you always have new ideas and new projects and things that are all connected to those original passions. But where do you think that comes from?
That's funny. I don't know. I have a lot of performers in my family, professional musicians, singers, actors, and I'm not those things, but I guess I like putting on shows in a way and having you can't I like doing it with a group of people. Yeah, that's a good question. One grandmother was a musician, the other one was she was a milliner, a hat maker, and she was and a seamstress, and she was always making things. She was an incredible cook. And I was working, watching her and being with her and trying to imitate her from an early age. So yeah, I don't know. I think it was just born into me. And as far as pulling other people into the art, I didn't do that at first. I didn't have the confidence or I didn't have the ideas, the big ideas. But it was after many years of working at this incredible craft school that has a community building focus that I realized that people need to be pulled into activities. Sometimes they don't know how to get them going themselves. And I'm never really worried about the fact that I didn't have every angle of it figured out. It's like, well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So just that has never frightened me, that I didn't know every single thing that was going to happen. And I'm sure I've made mistakes and embarrassed myself. But I think I love being with my community and my friends so much that I would rather just not hang out and talk. I'd rather make something with them, Definitely. I mean, talking is good too, but
it's really interesting because there is a difference between being alone in your studio and designing and coming up with, art or music or whatever, versus actually having an idea that involves other people. Some of the things you've organized are like large parades with puppets and group community cooking things. And you've started Morris dance teams and things like that. And it's not always comfortable and easy because you have to mix in everyone's opinions or variety of skill level, or, it's not always the easiest route. To me on the outside, well, I've gotten to participate in a lot in these different projects, that one of the secret sauce, elements that you have is not worrying about those details. Like you're saying, like, let's get moving, let's do it, let's give it a try. And if there's anything that's like a little bumpy or rough on the edges, it really doesn't matter. And if we use those things as a reason to not do the project, then it would never happen. And there've been some really big, beautiful things. So thank you for that.
Well, some of the amazing people that join in these projects do think about things differently than I do. And so I think sometimes they have struggled with just letting go and letting the group flow kind of guide. But having a goal and having a deadline and things like that to get these things together is a good way to frame it and to make it happen. Yeah, it's funny. I don't always think of myself in that way, but other people tell me that I'm that way. So I listen to them. And as far as having downtime or quiet time to do design work and to plan and things like that, I definitely need that. I really need that. And as I get older, I probably need it more, but then I also worry less about what's going to happen when the group comes together and we do things together, because I think that I know that how to kind of get the energy flow going, and people are usually willing. A lot of it is just trying to appear calm and be nice and friendly, Yeah. And you're really good at that. You are so good at that. And I continue to learn from your style because you are so generous and always checking in with people to see how they're doing. Where sometimes I'm like, don't worry too much about how you're doing. Just come on, let's just go. We got to go. But I think people respond really well to directives when they're constantly asked, does this make sense? Are you getting it? Are you following this? When you're leading them through something that they might feel a little uncomfortable with. And dancing especially, folks are really putting themselves out there for people to watch them, and they want to make sure they know what they're doing and they feel good about, the pattern. So it's really important to support them in that.
I think you're right that some people don't know where to start. Like everyone has creativity in them and they just don't know where to start, how to do it, how to get it going. And I definitely am always curious about people who had mentors that helped them along. And I would say that some of what you've offered our community is even a little bit different. It's not just a mentorship like you can do it, which you do. You're actually creating situations where people could participate in ways they never would have imagined, whether it's like some really complicated Indian recipe. This happened to me, and I'm looking at it and they're like, I don't think I could do this. And then you did a group cooking workshop and you're like, oh, it's okay. We're just going to cook on the backside of the skillet. And then we're going to make the bread on that over a big fire. And I'm like, really? And it totally works out. And so that's always been, even though I feel like I'm generally ready to try new things, I've definitely had experiences being in your zone where I tried something I wouldn't have.
Oh, that's great.
You're talking about Haywood Community College. For people that don't know, that's located in Clyde, North Carolina, and it's one of the only places to professionally study craft and craft business. Is that
There's
right?
probably some master programs at some of the universities, and I think I'm sure of that there are places where you can get. This was like a business degree in crafts, but it was also technical stuff. So it was learning all the ins and outs for me, which was weaving. It included surface design and basketry and dye work and clothing design, all kinds of pattern stuff. And the idea was that you were supposed to take the time that you were there to figure out what your product was going to be for the business that you finally ended up doing. And I chose rug weaving and made rugs professionally for about 25 years. And when we moved back to Brasstown in 1992 or 93 or whatever, you were one of my 13-year-old weavers. You helped me with my production line because you were so quick and so smart, and I knew you could do it and loved hanging out with you. So yeah, that's just an aside for our listeners that you and I go way back. And I appreciate everything you have become and learned to do, and just blown away by your artistic ability. So, and have been so happy to get to share that with you because you're close by. So I get to see what you're doing, and you're a huge inspiration. And just the fact that you're willing to play along with some of the stuff that I dream of is even better. But the whole John C. Campbell Folk School as an environment for nurturing these kind of activities and this kind of community building and this kind of non-competitive, growth and sharing what you know with people without worrying about that they're going to be better than you at it or steal something from you or whatever, is really a foundation for my personal life and the choices that I have made as a craftsperson or as a cook.
Well, and both at the folk school and Haywood, you are saying you benefited from the environment of being around other people who were also making and also curious about those things. And, Haywood's a program you have to sign up for a couple of years. The folk school is a place you could come for a weekend or a week and be around people. There have been so many angles of ideas that you've taken through time. And do you feel that it's been like a symbiotic relationship in a way? So there were things that you were creating and then also ways that we all benefit from just simply being around in a place like the folk school.
I think the folk school is an enabler, and that it's when it's working right, it's a supportive environment. And it's true that you can come and just stay for 1 week. But what I did was I came initially back in the days when the classes were 2 weeks. So I got a big dose of it, and then came back to do work study, which is an extended stay period. So I was there for a whole year trying out new things. And the idea of learning something in a group situation, you don't just learn from what you do, you learn from what everybody else does too. So you can become much more versed in whatever it is you're thinking about. And then a school teaches classes for those folks that don't know anything about the folk school. It has 800 week-long classes a year in everything from blacksmithing to weaving to basketry to woodworking to lutherie to cooking, gardening, music and dance. Any craft just about that you could think of is happening at the folk school. So it's this huge umbrella of artistic endeavors. And I kept coming back. I did it for a year, then I went off to college, and then I did professional craft school, and then I came back to do the homesteading program, which was a year long, and then I started teaching classes at the folk school at that point because I had weaving credentials. And then a few years later, my husband took the directorship position, and he was the executive director there for 25 years, which is longer than anybody in the history of the school was the director. So I had an incredible immersion there, and it was not just a job for us, it was a livelihood. So all of that has made me who I am, and it's made it easy for me to talk to people that I don't know and to encourage people that I don't know, because I'm constantly in a group where I'm meeting new folks and trying to help them and learn from them as well. So that part is getting way easier. I was very shy when I was in high school. So it's been a big deal for me to be able to speak publicly and talk to groups of people and leaders and stuff like that. I just wanted it so bad.
Yeah, and when we want it bad, maybe we'll go through some discomforts to get there.
Yep.
We do have a unique relationship because I was a child and you were like one of my aunt mother people. And then now I'm grown up and now you're one of my very dear friends. It just makes, I benefited so much from intergenerational relationships. What are your thoughts about the benefits of intergenerational living?
Wow. So a real community, a true community, is made up of people of all ages. And I think we go through these various cycles in our lives too, when we feel like, we're overwhelmed by work and children and relationships and stuff like that. And then we get to a point where kids are grown and you got a little bit more room to breathe and you can look around and see, what needs to be done and who needs to be helped. And then, of course, for children, they're supposed to be able to have more than just their parents to learn from and to feed off of. And parents need breaks. So kids need to go out and be with people within their, community of family or community of friends. We have a tribal mentality here, I think, in Brasstown, because so many of us have been committed to this place for a long time. We have settled here. We have roots here. And we realize that because it's not urban at all, it's so very rural, that we have to kind of create our own kind of entertainment and fun. And a lot of that is from the beauty of our environment, and the mountains themselves kind of are an energy, and I feel like they're present in our community. But having an intergenerational dance team and friend group, oh gosh, I am so grateful that I have friends that are younger than me, because y'all keep me just stimulated and inspired. I hope those of us that are ahead of you can kind of show you the way too,
Definitely.
Hopefully, life should not have to be so incredibly hard. And when you've got friends and community that you can share it with, everything is easier, even the hard times. Real life happens. We've been through some horrible things in our lives, and music, art, dance, all of those things have pulled me through times when I really didn't feel like I could do it without that. So
yeah, and some of those creative endeavors that helped you through hard times were professional, and some were for fun. And I feel like sometimes people feel squashed by life. They'll let those things fall away when actually they can be really healing. They can help you through, and they're worth fighting for. It's not about whether it's your job or not. It's about enriching your own life.
Absolutely. Art is some of the best therapy that you can give yourself. And music, I consider music art. Music is really, really powerful on so many levels. But making music or listening to music or dancing to music, but art in itself can happen in any daily activity. One of the things that attracted me to fiber weaving was color, and being able to work with color and play with color. Well, color is present in food preparation as well. So the world of fruits and vegetables is just incredible. So for me, I was able to pull my color knowledge, color theory knowledge into cooking. And that was just a very easy transition from being a production weaver to being a culinary professional cooking teacher. So art is present everywhere, and art influences your mental state, including interior design and having a home space that feels nurturing and comfortable and beautiful and reflects your personality and all of that. That is good mental health, to put that into work. So some of these things that seem frivolous or extravagant, when you think about what your needs are, as a human, art is not frivolous or extravagant. It is very necessary, maybe more to some people than others, but you know who you are and you know whether you need it or not. And those of us that need it, we better bloody have it, or we won't be happy.
Je suis d'accord, as they say in French. You also had some children and things like that. And you were also juggling your own things calling you that you wanted to make and do and experiment with. And I know from my own experience that it's not always easy doing the mama thing and honoring that other side. It's the whole creating in the middle of things. What are thoughts that you might have for people out there who are trying to deal with that?
So if you are trying to be a creative person, where sometimes you really do have to just go under to make that happen, and you have kids and you've got food that needs to be cooked for dinner and, obligations, you have a job, all those things, there are times when you must prioritize art over some of those other things. And if you can do it, if you can figure out the blocks of time that you need, that isn't going to sacrifice the good health of your family or the safety of your children, you should do it. And one of the things that I had was an excellent partner who understood how important that was and was willing to tag team with me. If you're raising kids by yourself, it's way harder, but sometimes it's worth the money to hire a babysitter so you can have your time. Just giving yourself a few minutes every day is really important if you can't have blocks of time. And journaling or, sketching, or even putting a little bit extra energy into the meal that you're preparing so that it's beautiful and you feel like you're creating there in the kitchen. All of those things are worth it and necessary. And then, of course, I did, and I just have to mention this because it's such a huge part of just my life in general. I had 3 kids, and when my oldest son was 19, he was diagnosed with cancer. It was a bone cancer, and over a period of 5 years, it took him. So we had a tragedy in our family that really affected us and on multiple levels. And I had a young son at that time who was, he was very young when my oldest got sick, and he was a middle schooler when we lost our oldest son. And he has suffered, because of that tragedy. But we still, as a family, played music during that time. We sang together. We did what we could to continue to be artists. And my oldest son was a budding artist kind of at that point. And I know that he did a lot of things to help himself through that difficult time. And he journaled and wrote things. And there's still boxes that he left us that I haven't really been able to go through and read, but I will at some point. So even in that situation, when life is fleeting, art is still super important.
Definitely.
Got to keep doing it.
Yeah. That's one thing that you said so many times to me for Dames Rocket practice. That's a Northwest Morris dance team. For those of you who don't know what that is, and it would be a really hard day or something's going on. And you would say, well, the worse the day is, the worse things are going on, the harder life is, the more you need to be here and dance.
Yeah, because dance is, physical. It's physical as well. So walking and taking long walks, and for me, dancing was healing. I mean, it really is what kind of kept moving us through. And, we talk about our great community that we're in, and people that visit us here and recognize what we've got, talk about how we're kind of Candyland or paradise or whatever. Well, we're just as real as any other community, and we have had a lot of loss and suffering, sadness, but we come together to kind of help each other get through it. And sometimes it's not about words, it's just about being together physically, or singing together, or dancing together, or whatever. So these are not frivolous activities. These are important activities that keep us alive and healthier probably.
Yeah, and if we're healthier, then the people around us are healthier, and then the whole planet is healthier.
Amen, sister. Yes. So find a dance team. It's funny too, about a lot of studies have been done about people who are part of groups, even like sports teams, or where they're on a team and they're working together on something, even like a Girl Scout troop, or just any kind of a little group that you have, a book club, whatever it is. If you're part of that group that's kind of sharing together on a regular basis, it may or may not be competitive. I mean, I love the idea of it not being competitive. Our dance team is not a competitive dance team. We teach each other stuff and we work at it until we figure we're good enough to go dance on the streets, but we're not being judged by anybody but ourselves, I guess. Anyway, all of those things are really important. To be part of a group that can really help you. It's like therapy in a way, without having to expose all of your private thoughts.
Right. Because private thoughts are private.
Yeah, some people are all about sharing their private thoughts, and sometimes you don't want to do that at all. Sometimes it's nice to share a few private thoughts so people can understand kind of where you are at that given moment, and they know how to be with you better. But yeah.
One of your main things is cooking. And I was curious, every once in a while, you'll mention something that's like a time saver or a different solution. And I'm like, wow, I never thought of that, in honor of people trying to quickly put good food together for themselves or their family. What are some of your favorite little things that you suggest, or tips or tricks?
Well, I love a one-pot meal. I think cleanup is the worst. And if you can create something that's going to keep you from having to wash a bunch of dishes and still have a healthy home cooked meal. So my current thing, and this works for people who, can do gluten. I'm not sure how it would work with rice noodles. I'll have to figure it out. But doing one pot pastas, where you start with a pot of boiling water and you throw in the noodles, and then add to the pot things like vegetables that can boil in the pasta water for a few minutes, like broccoli or carrots, or things like that can cook in the same pasta water. And then you can just dump all of this out into a light sauce of whatever you want. It could just be oil and garlic. So I love that idea. There's ways to cook spaghetti all in one thing. Slow cookers are amazing. You do have to be prepared. You have to get that together in the morning. But I think they're really great. And there's all kinds of good stuff you can cook in a slow cooker, and your house smells with wonderful, come home to a meal that's ready. And again, that's a one pot thing. So I'm all about those. I'm not much of a meal prepper. I've kind of tried that. And I think that it is nice. It's really nice to have a box of cut up veg in the refrigerator that is just ready to go. Like you might do your chopping on Sunday afternoon, and you have a box in your fridge that has onions and carrots or whatever vegetables you want, even lettuces, things that can make a quick salad. So having a box of that kind of stuff in the fridge, I think, is great, and just pull on it. I try very hard to eat and cook healthy meals, and I'm all about plant-based food. I do eat meat, but I think just trying to figure out how to streamline that prep. Oh, other amazing one-pot meals, and then I'll quit. One of our favorites is khichdi, which is an Indian dish that's made with lentils, and rice. And they cook together with a layer of vegetables on top and all kinds of delicious spices. And there's some layering of ingredients that you do, cooking onion and spice first, and then adding the rice and lentils, and then adding vegetables on top, and then shutting the whole thing down and letting it cook. So those are complete proteins and just fabulous meals that, again, fill your house with fabulous spicy aromas. So
yum.
One pot meals, I like those.
Well, as a wrapping up question, thing that's fun always to do is trading inspiration, things you're loving right now, or people that you're following, or books that you have been reading lately in honor of filling up your inspiration cup. And I was wondering if you had anybody or anything to share in honor of that.
Well, I am a production craftsperson at heart, so I don't like to just make one of something. I like to make multiples. I like to make 15 of something. So what I'm doing right now is teaching myself how to do production bread baking. And I have done it in the past, but I recently built a wood-fired oven in my backyard. I have a little outdoor kind of gathering and pavilion area with a wood-fired oven. So I'm trying to learn how to make multiple loaves of bread. So I've been reading Chad Robertson's tartine bread books. They are incredible. I do have a stack of cookbooks that I keep on my bedside, table, but I study cookbooks even if I don't use the recipes that are in there. Francis Mallmann's Seven Fires. He's an Argentinian chef, well-known chef that writes about how to cook on an open fire, and that's something I'm super interested in, is cooking on fires. So I love his book. Also, one of the most inspirational things that I've been listening to, and I think it was from your recommendation, is the Guy Raz's podcast, How I Built This, because I am an entrepreneur at heart. I've never made tons of money, but I have always loved the idea of, creating a business, and listening to the stories, the interviews that he makes, stories of people who started with an idea and it snowballed into $1 million or $1 billion enterprise. I love listening to those. Yeah, I could go on and on. I'm studying American Shaker history. And so I read a lot of books about the American Shaker community. And they were a utopian community of makers, self-sufficient farmers and growers. And they had a religious concept, but they lived this incredible farm-to-table life that was flourishing in the 19th century. So I'm reading up on a lot of Shaker history and stories from the brothers and sisters that lived in those communities.
And they had song and dance also. They mixed it all up together.
Absolutely, they did. They celebrated, they worshiped through song and dance as well. Yep, they did. They were a celibate community, and people say, oh, that's why they died out. But in fact, that is not why. And they were the longest lived community in the history of the American utopian community thing, which was a thing in the 19th century, especially. But I often thought that physical release in church of singing hard and dancing and whirling and shaking was part of their release, tension of whatever kind.
Yeah, right. Well, I really, really appreciate you being here. And I hope people check out the Folk School Cookbook and any classes you're teaching at the John C. Campbell Folk School. I can attest as a student of yours that is so fun, so fun.
Well, I'm grateful that you are my friend, and I'm so proud of you for speaking out to folks and encouraging people to, listen to their creative side and explore it, develop it. It's there. Everybody has it. You just need permission sometimes to open that door. So, yay.
Yay. I look forward to talking to you more soon. Thank you.
Well, thanks. Me too. Bye for now.
Bye for now. If you would like to be in touch or have someone you would love to hear interviewed, email me at afainhouse@gmail.com. I also hope that you're inspired to subscribe to this podcast. New episodes come out every Tuesday. If you would like to watch these interviews in video form and are curious about the happenings of my little business called Fain House, where I paint and make art prints and gift cards for my watercolor originals, I'd love for you to sign up for my email list. When you do, you'll get a coupon for 10% off a one-time purchase in my Etsy shop and first dibs on my annual limited edition calendar printing. You'll also be granted access to our free private Facebook group, which is the one spot you can watch these interviews. If that all sounds fun to you, go to your web browser and type bit.ly/FainHouse to sign up. That's with a capital F and a capital H in Fain House. This is not a weekly newsletter, but rather a list of folks who are interested in hearing from me time to time. I'm Annie Fain Barrelon. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll leave you with a quote for the day. You can't use up creativity. The more you use, the more you have. Maya Angelou.